What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about V3 Kuzan, who's going to be debuting on Global on the 16th of March, 1900 PST time. And of course, this is a character that hasn't arrived on the Japanese side of the game, so not a lot of people have had the opportunity to get their hands on this character, play around with him, see what works, what doesn't work. But just looking at him at a face value, a lot of characters are going to be working really well with this guy. So in this video today, I just want to take this time to talk about the unit and talk about some other characters that you might already own or you might want to look into potentially getting in the future that will work really well with this guy. So let's just jump into it. This is likely going to be a relatively longer video, so I want to try and get through this as soon as possible. So first of all, I want to actually talk about this Kuzan. Now, unfortunately, on the database, the artwork is not here, but the artwork does look very cool, by the way. So let's go ahead and talk about him. So he is a free spirit shooter character. He's also a quick unit. You know, it would have been cool if he was a class-based captain, but no, he is a type-based captain, as his captain ability says. If you have exactly 6 strength, dex, or quick characters on your team, you get a 4 times chain boost and a 1.75 times attack boost to your strength, dex, and quick characters. He also makes strength, dex, and quick slots beneficial to those characters as well. So there's lots of good things going along here. We'll talk about pros and cons after we go through his abilities. He does have really good sailor abilities as well. So if he's a sub and he has a quick orb and you hit a perfect with him, he carries that orb through the next turn. And also he has the largest tap timing bonus damage sailor ability in the entire game. The previous best was a 4 times boost. This is a 9 times boost. So a very significant upgrade right there. He has a very good special too. At 12 turn cooldown, he gives your strength, dex, and quick characters a 2.25 times orb boost and gives them a 1.75 times color affinity for 1 turn. And he makes perfects much easier to hit. That's actually, that's a little bit mistranslated because on the actual game, it does mention, it says much easier to land a perfect strike, which I believe is the same wording as the Zunisha ship, which is very good, by the way. So it looks very impressive so far. So what are like the pros and cons to this character at a glance, right? So just looking at him on paper, he's going to have massive raw damage because being a 4 times chain booster with a 1.75 times attack boost, we have characters like that already. We've got V2 Sanji, we have V2 Mihawk. We understand how much damage they're able to output. And because of knowing that, we can safely assume that this guy is going to be like one of the best legends in the game in terms of raw damage. Another really good thing about it is he gives you so many more beneficial slots. V2 Mihawk almost had it right where he increases the chances of dex and int orbs, and of course if you have V2 Zora as a sub, those orbs are treated as beneficial. This guy just flat out gives you 3 of the 7 natural orbs as beneficial. So not only are you getting massive raw damage, it's much easier to get beneficial slots as well. So that's so good to see. And because this guy, comparing him once again to V2 Mihawk and V2 Sanji, he's not restricted to one class. He's restricted to 3 colors in the entire game. So give or take, you know, 60% of the game he has access to, which is very impressive. So team flexibility is a very good positive to the character. And of course, moving to his sailor abilities, we talked about just a second ago, he has 2 really good crewmate abilities. Number 1 being, you know, the best tap timing bonus sailor ability in the entire game, which is very impressive. He also has a very good special, which we said as well, to get an orb boost and color affinity in one unit is so good. It means that it frees up a lot of crew space on your team. It means you don't have to bring a dedicated unit for an orb boost or a dedicated unit for a color affinity. You already have it on your team, especially if you're running double Kuzan. That's going to be really nice, and it's going to go a long way in improving your chances of clearing content, right? Another really good thing about him that I guess we should really talk about is he has a very good support ability. So he supports any strength, dex, or quick unit, and he adds 8% of his stats to the support unit. So that's very reminiscent of characters like, you know, Snake Man. Snake Man's a little bit more flexible, but then you got characters like Douglas Bullet, V1 Big Mom, characters like that can be attached to a large majority of the game, and he adds a large majority of stats to those units. So that's awesome, right? Very flexible unit, can be put on lots of different teams, and just outputs a lot of damage. So those are really good positives to the character. So Kuzan at the moment is looking very impressive. Now, what are the bad things about him? So number 1, he doesn't have any tankiness. There's no HP boost, there's no damage reduction, there's no recovery mechanic in his captain ability or his special ability. So immediately tankiness might be a big problem. So if you have a ship like the Moby Dick for very difficult content, that might be a way to get around that, getting a lot more HP. But of course, he has access to strength, dex, and quick units. So there are plenty of healers on those particular teams, so that's not really going to be that big of an issue, but it's something to note that tankiness might be a problem there. Another thing as well, it goes without saying, with his type of captain ability, any chain lock lock or chain reduction effects are going to hinder his damage a lot. Basically, if he gets inflicted with those debuffs, he's not going to be doing any damage at all. So under certain circumstances, you will be required to bring certain characters to avoid certain debuffs. That's nothing new. Certain characters get completely wiped out by certain debuffs in the game. We've seen that already. So it's nothing really that new, but it just means that, you know, you might be restricted to certain units on certain teams, depending on the content that you're going up against. So that is a really bad thing about him. He doesn't give you any guaranteed slots. It would have been sick if they dropped his perfects easier to hit and just guaranteed full board of orbs. That would have been absolutely amazing, but either way, it just means that you do have to plan your team out correctly and make sure you have characters that can give you some guaranteed slots. That would be nice. Now, another thing as well is that with his special ability, yes, it's a massive amount of damage. You get the 2.25 orb, 1.75 color affinity. That's a lot of damage in one turn. The only thing is, it only lasts for one turn. And the thing is, in this game, there aren't any characters that can be run on this guy's team that can extend the duration of that buff. The only two characters I can think of that do extending of duration buffs would be like V2 Ray Dofi, and your captain needs to be cerebral or driven, and he's an int character, so he doesn't work. And the other one is another Kuzan character, and he only extends it by one turn, so Kuzan might have a little bit of problems there, but again, if you're running double Kuzan, you can use one on one stage, one on another stage, so that's fine. And the fact that, you know, with his special, he does make perfects much easier to hit. It means that if you do have to activate that and the enemy hypothetically has a good or a great barrier, that's already going to be really bad because, you know, you've got to try and hit your perfects to make sure his chain multiplier is ramping up. And if you've got to deal with goods and greats, that's going to be a big problem. So those type of debuffs are also going to be a big problem. So those barriers and then chain locking or chain reduction are really, really big bad things for this Kuzan character. So that's the quick rundown of the character and my personal pros and cons to the unit as a whole. So I think overall, I think the pros heavily outweigh the cons in terms of what he's able to do in One Piece Treasure Cruise, which is good to see. That's always what you want to see. So let's talk about what type of ships you can run with this guy. Now, there's three main ships that I've listed here. The first one is Ho. Ho goes without saying, it can be pretty much run on whatever team you want. The fact that it gives you the cooldown reduction, which is great. You can just, you know, breeze through content. It base 1.5 boost. It gives you extra EXP, which is always nice, but it also has a healing mechanic. Healing mechanic for Kuzan teams might be really useful, depending on, again, the content that you're up against. The next one is going to be another really similar one that I think a lot of people would agree would be the Blackbird Ship. This ship is really good because it is a strength, dex, and quick ship. Gives you extra HP, which is going to be nice for a character like this, and it gives you cooldown. So, you know, you can pick and choose which one you want. So yeah, this is really good though, but there is a problem with this ship particularly, is that you need to have a strength, a dex, and a quick character on your crew. So you actually need one of each of those three colors, whereas with Kuzan's captain ability, you don't actually need one of each color for it to activate. So you got to be really careful. Don't make a big mistake and use the ship when it's not going to activate, you know. You have to make sure that that's done correctly. And I guess really for the last ship, I guess you could kind of classify it as a couple of different things, because you could use like the Kizaru Cannonball, which is a shooter attack boosting ship. Kuzan is a shooter, so if you are running strength, dex, and quick units that are all shooters, you could use that. Or you could run the Polar Tang, which is a slasher and free spirit ship. Once again, if you're running strength, dex, and quick units that are either slasher or free spirit, that could be another option as well. It really depends on what type of team you are building and the content you're up against, but I think a majority of the time you're going to be going with the Ho ship or the Blackbirds. Those are the two best ships in my personal opinion for a guy like Kuzan. So now let's go ahead and move on over to your powers or the sockets, right? So these are the two structures that I would suggest. I would say the number one option would be running damage reduction, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory because he doesn't have any tankiness at all. Extra damage reduction would be useful there. And then the other one would be orb sockets. I think those are the two structures that you should go with. I don't think anything else here really makes a lot of sense. Recovery up doesn't make sense, and the other ones are really bad. So I'd probably go with one of these two. Either of them are fine. I personally would pick the damage reduction effects over the orbs, but that is up to you and the type of team that you're building at the end of the day. So either way, that will go off quite fine. So let's go ahead and talk about the ways that you can utilize the character in the game, what type of units you can use with him. So another really good thing about Kuzan, I guess it could be considered as a pro, is that he can be hybrided up with a lot of different captains. Like, there is a pretty good array of characters that you can use with this guy. So hypothetically, if you didn't own your own Kuzan, you could still use him as a friend captain with a lot of other units. And I think namely that the first one that a lot of people would think about would be Lucy. Lucy, of course, is a strength, dex, and quick character, relating to his captain ability, of course. But remember, with Lucy, you do need one of each of the colors, so you do have to plan that out correctly. But this is a really good combination because you've got an attack boost and you've got an orb and a color affinity boost just with your captain. So that's a very, very good start to a team composition right there. So Lucy's very good. We can list off the other ones just really quickly. Douglas Bullet is a pretty decent option because he will go ahead and boost strength, quick, and int. So if you are building a team with this guy, you would want to obviously not run any dex units, but this is a pretty good option if you want to run something like that. You've also got access to someone like Snake Man. Snake Man is still pretty good. Now, there's a little bit of overlap here because he himself is an orb booster as well, but you got to remember that Snake Man, he reduces cooldown, he gives you HP boost, he gives you dex and int orbs beneficial. So with these two guys as captain, you get strength, dex, quick, and int orbs beneficial, so that's pretty good. With his special ability, makes your type slots beneficial to your crew, gives you a combo boost as well, which helps out Kuzan as well. There's lots of good benefits to running something like this, and goes to show why Snake Man is still considered one of the best in the game. Now, what else do you have? You have V1 Big Mom. Big Mom, I don't recommend using her all that much. I'm not really a big fan of V1 Big Mom. Some people really like her, but I'm not the biggest fan. But if you run something like this, you could actually use her ship as well, the Big Mama Chanter. It does require your captain to be powerhouse or driven, which in this case it would, but being on Big Mom, she's not, I don't know, I do not suggest it. Another character you could use, another rainbow captain, would be Luffy and Law. Of course, because every time they switch between each other, they're either quick or dex, so you're going to be working there with Kuzan. You've got a really nice orb boost here. It just works out pretty well, right? If you have the support ability of the support rare recruit Sengoku and you put that on this guy, that's going to be awesome because, you know, Kuzan kind of struggles to give you full body matching orbs. Support Sengoku basically guarantees you a full body matching orbs if you activate his special upon switching. So that's a really cool mechanic that you can utilize. I believe that support Sengoku also gives you a combo boost as well, which will go further into improving Kuzan's damage too. So that's really cool, something you could do. So yeah, you could run a full strength, dex, and quick team with that guy. So that's a pretty good option as well. You could even run someone like Franky. Franky's pretty interesting, but you got to remember with Franky, there is a condition with him, of course, the fact that you do have to have you know, the main classes, like you need to have shooters, fighters, slashers, and strikers. And if you do have him as your captain, you can use his captain action to get further boosts, and as well as the fact that his special ability is a type boosting effect, which again goes quite far considering you've got the other two boosts of color affinity and orbs with Kuzan. And then the last character would be someone like Sabo, which is the Dex Legend Sabo, because he boosts the attack of fighters, shooters, and free spirit. Kuzan is a shooter and a free spirit, so if you can run a full fighter, shooter, free spirit team that is strength, dex, and quick, that is a pretty good option as well. More chances of matching orbs. He's a chain locker, which you probably don't want to use all that much with Kuzan, but it is an option if you don't have literally anything else. I wouldn't suggest it because of that chain locking effect, because that hinders Kuzan's damage, but the captain ability alone would work reasonably well with Kuzan. But let's just talk about regular Kuzan, right? Let's talk about something else, right? So the main thing about this event and why it's significant is because of the World Clash units. The World Clash units are very interesting. They're all actually really good, by the way. They're all going to be available in the upcoming Sugo Fest where Kuzan debuts, and if you get your hands on any of them, man, they're going to go a long way into improving your teams, that's for sure. The really cool thing about it is all these World Clash units will actually work under Kuzan, right? Because Kuzan is a strength, dex, and quick character as a captain, and all these units fulfill that. Now, each of these units are very good in their own right. So you've got Luffy. He does fixed damage towards the enemy that ignores all barriers and damage negating effects. He reduces Bind and Despair by 4 turns, and if your crew has 2 or more dex or quick characters, you get a 2.25 attack boost to strength units. So they all have that effect on them, is that, you know, if you have the 2 other colors, then he gives you a massive attack boost for their own color. So with Blackbeard, if you have 2 or more strength or quick, you get a massive boost to dex. But the best one here for Kuzan would be the Akainu, right? Because if you have 2 or more strength or dex, you get your quick units a massive attack boost. But you've got the other effects of these characters too. So we already said you've got the fixed damage, and you've also got Bind and Despair removal with the Luffy. With Akainu, you can remove attack down and increase damage taken, as well as changing all slots, including block, on strength and quick orbs into matching, which is great. And then you've got Blackbeard to do a health cut. He removes Threshold. He reduces Blue Shield by 5 turns as well. Removes barriers by 1 turn. So with these 3 characters alone, you're already removing a bunch of different debuffs. You have an attack boost to whatever you want to do here. And it's not even that terrible, right? Because you gotta remember, Kuzan is a chain boosting captain, which means the last character on your chain will be hitting the hardest on your team. So even if Luffy's the only character getting a boost, you're gonna be doing a lot of damage towards like a Dex enemy, as an example, right? So you can have like an attack boost for this guy, and remember with the color affinity and orb boost of Kuzan, you can get some pretty cool stuff happening here. So these three characters work very, very well with this Kuzan, but it's the fact that not a lot of people are going to be able to get them, but it's something that I just wanted to state to you guys. So that's really, really nice. But let's say you don't have those characters. What are some other options that you have to build attack boosting units with Kuzan? So we already mentioned Lucy just a minute ago. Lucy is one of the best units to use because he boosts all the same colors with his special ability, and it's a multi-turn boost as well, so you can carry it through multiple different stages. So you got other characters as well, like the Zoro that came out. He is the chainmail one. This guy right here. He boosts the attack of strength and quick by 2 times if they have a debuff immunity or a delay debuff immunity, so he's a pretty good option if you have him. He's been available on a couple different banners now. He was around when the Stampede banner was out, I think, so I think a few people would probably have him by now. Another really good one, I'm always a big fan of this guy, but Dice. This guy's great. If your captain's strength or quick, you get a strength orb for himself and a 1.75 attack boost, and he removes barriers with his special as well, so Dice is very, very nice to have. Raid Rayleigh is another really good one, and a lot of people would have him done by now. Really good for carrot teams specifically, but he's a really good unit because of his limit break. He's able to get his special ability multiple times in a run, so Raid Rayleigh is really nice to have. Another unit as well is Stampede Brook, a relatively recent character that debuted. He is very nice because he boosts the attack of strength, quick, and int, so if you are running Brook, you probably don't want to be running too many Dex characters with him, but he is one of those ones like Lucy where if you hit a certain amount of perfects, then you get a massive attack boost on the following stage. So here's another unit similar to Lucy that can kind of do the same sort of thing. And then the 2 other characters I want to make note of is Legend Franky, which we briefly talked about before with a really good attack boosting effect, and another one would be like Kung Fu Luffy. Kung Fu Luffy is great because he gives you adjacent orbs matching an attack boost. He does damage towards all enemies. He gives you a damage reducing effect. He's a really good sub-unit actually. He has tap timing bonus with his sailor ability as well. He's pretty good. So if you have any of those characters that we mentioned, those are just some examples of some type boosters that you might want to run with Kuzan, and they all work really, really well. The last topic I want to talk about before we end this video is just discussing some units that you could potentially use that will remove the debuffs that kind of hinder his ability to do damage, the chain locking and the chain reducing effects. So we'll talk about chain lock first. We'll talk about chain lock, we'll talk about chain reduction, and we'll talk about units that do both of them, which are pretty useful. So the first one for chain lock I have is Colosseum NL. NL is really great because he just does a lot of different things. He reduces paralysis, attack down, chain multiply limit. NL's very good. Make sure to have him maxed. He's a really, really good utility character to have. The next one would be Crocodile. So I'm talking about the most recent Crocodile to come out, which is the raid version, because he actually gives you the ability for orb manipulation. He reduces the chain lock, I think it's by 8 turns. Yeah, 8 turns. And then he says if your captain is striker or cerebral, you get a base chain boost, which actually would work very well with Kuzan. But the thing is, Kuzan is not striker or cerebral. It would have been so good if he was. Like, Crocodile would legitimately be like one of the best subs for him, but unfortunately not the case there. And the final character in terms of removing chain lock by a decent amount of turns would be this guy, Raid Cracker, who's actually a really suggested unit because not only does he remove that chain lock, but he changes all orbs to Dex. So that's going to be great because it means that getting matching orbs is not going to be a problem using someone like Raid Cracker. So those 3 units are very, very good for giving the ability to remove chain lock, and they're all free to play those units as well, so that's nice. Now, there's only 2 units I'd really suggest for removing chain reduction specifically. This Strength Marker as well as Quick Harjuden. Both of these units have the ability to remove chain reduction, but Marker is really good because he also reduces bind and attack down on top of that by 5 turns, and if you have 3 or more strength characters, he gives you a chain boost. So if you are running predominantly strength, he's a really good unit to have. And then the last character here is Harjuden for chain reduction because he also reduces bind, paralysis as well. He gives you cooldown for powerhouse and driven, which doesn't matter. If your captain is powerhouse or driven, you get a delayed attack boost. Again, that won't activate, but you're only going to be really running him if you need to get around the chain reduction mechanic. But there are actually a bunch of units that reduce both chain lock and chain reduction by a pretty good amount of turns. So the first one would be Stampede Chopper. Again, another relatively recent character. He's really nice because not only does he remove both of those debuffs, but he also reduces despair and paralysis as well. So that's a pretty good option to have. Then you've also got access to Kinemon. So Kinemon is actually available on the current banner right now, right before Kuzan's release. This guy's really nice because he does remove the chain lock and chain reduction by 7 turns. 7 turns, which is so nice to have. And then if your captain is Slashy, you get a color affinity boost, but that doesn't matter. You're only really going to be bringing him for the chain reduction and chain lock removal. The next one is Raid Judge. There is one specific I want to talk about in a second who's really, really good. But Raid Judge, let me look at it if I could type it up correctly. So Raid Judge is pretty cool because he also removes it by 5 turns and does fixed damage, also reduces increased damage taken, which isn't that important. If you've got 3 more Dex characters, you get a color affinity boost. That doesn't matter, of course, because Kuzan already is a color affinity booster. But that's another option that you could have. Another one that also reduces a lot of it is Kuzan. Kuzan, of course, one of the best utility units in the game. It is unfortunate, though, he only reduces it by 3 turns, but of course, you've got a lot of other benefits with him as well because of the healing, etc. And then the last one is a Rebecca. This Rebecca is actually really nice to have. You don't really see her use that much, but she has the ability to remove chain lock and chain reduction by 5 turns, as well as giving adjacent orbs matching. So if you need a little bit more matching orbs, that's another really cool option to have. But the one that I want to talk about is Bala Hancock. Now, this Bala Hancock, I don't think too many people have, but if you have her, she is so good for this Kuzan because she reduces chain multiply limit and chain coefficient reduction by 5 turns. If your captain is shooter or free spirit, which he is, he then also, she also reduces bind by 5 turns and increased defense duration on the enemy by 5 turns. So she removes 4 different debuffs by 5 turns under Kuzan as a captain. This is so good. Like, she's one of the best subs for Kuzan in my personal opinion. If you have her, bro, that's so good if you have her. So those units in particular I did want to mention because they're going to help out running Kuzan teams a lot. Now, there is one other, like, secret useful tech I want to mention before we end this video today. So, one character that sees a decent amount of play, I'd say, is this Dex Rare Recruit Cavendish. Now, he's got a really nice effect because he changes block orbs into matching, he locks them for 1 turn, and boosts attack against enemies with reduced defense by 1.75 for 2 turns. So this is great, and there is a really cool way that you could utilize this mechanic as well as Kuzan's mechanic to get some really cool effects. So if we actually go ahead and have a look at a certain Akainu unit, this quick Akainu that came out with the Blitz battle last year on Global, I think some people would have this by now. This guy's really, really good. So he has a support ability that supports Aokiji or Kizaru. Once per adventure, when the supported character uses the special, reduces the defense of all enemies by 80% for 1 turn. So if you have the support ability on Kuzan, you can get a 2.25 orb boost and a 1.75 color affinity and a 1.75 conditional boost. And he changes block orbs into matching. So this is a really nice combination using these two and this Akainu unit. So if you have him, make sure to max his support ability because that is going to be very, very useful combination with these 2 characters. So other than that, those are the main units I wanted to talk about, just discussing how you can kind of build teams with this Kuzan character. I'm excited to see when he releases. I would love to get my hands on him just to test him out and definitely make a showcase video if I ever did pull him. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video today. And if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But other than that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.